What's up, world? How are you? It's a beautiful day. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, whatever you call it, whatever makes you feel good. You know, we're still here, a year anniversary after the COVID. Happy St. Patrick's Day for all those that are out there at the bars. You should be at home practicing social distancing, but it is what it is. Um, this is what we're doing right now. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I have a panel. We said last week that Kevin and I were going to bring a panel to you, and we were going to have an open dialogue and discussion about just law enforcement reform, defunding, different perspectives from uh, a white officer's eye, from a people of color eye. You know, it's so funny. The bottom line is this is no disrespect to any ethnicity in law enforcement or people of color. We're just trying to get a solution. This is Real Talk Chronicles. This is the only forum that you're going to have this kind of conversation. And this is what we do. I tell people right now, if you're watching from YouTube, subscribe to it, push the thumbs up, let people know. For all the people on the panel, if you're watching from Facebook, if you want your friends to know, it's on my page. Go to my page. You can share it and let everybody see what's happening and let them hear your point of views because that's what it is. It's all about sharing and helping Kevin and us build this brand that we have and keeping me and Facebook live and popping right now. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my partner in crime, Kevin Branzetti. How you doing today, brother?
You caught me just as I was about to take a sip. I'm doing well, Bill. I'm doing well. We're
Good.
back to nice cold days. We thought spring was here and it's a little bit of winter touch, but otherwise, I'm doing well.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna make it happen. Shout out to Cynthia on YouTube. I see you. I'm a shout out. She said hello, everybody. Hello, ladies, and hello, gentlemen. So, Kevin, last time we talked, we were having a good conversation, and the beautiful thing about the conversation, we even talked about um Kevin is foreign law enforcement. Kevin and I work together in the 2A, and I'm proud to call him my friend. And the one thing about Kevin that I love is that we are able to have discussions of color. And a lot of people are afraid to enter that realm and dialogue. And that's the only way we're going to change is if we have that kind of conversation. You know what I'm saying? And people tend to shy away. Well, Kevin and I don't shy away from that, and that's what we do. We converse about it, and even if we don't even agree with each other, we converse about it. But the bottom line is that conversation. Tonight, I have a wonderful panel of people. I have mixed, I have civilians along with prior law enforcement individuals. And with that being said, we're going to introduce them. We have another person coming in. Hey, Stephanie. She said, the cop crew. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you, Mike Jones. Mike, we're gonna have you on the show eventually one day too. What's up, Colin? Mike is foreign law enforcement. So we're gonna have a lot of people chiming in and coming in, law enforcement and civilians, and that's what we want. And eventually we'll have another panel in the future. But right now, I wanted people to introduce themselves and just give their a background on who they are. I'm gonna start from my right. It might be on Chuck. I'm gonna go with Chuck, Gina, Alicia, and then Greg. I just want you to introduce yourselves and tell them what your background is, and we're gonna move on and go on from there. So go ahead, everybody. My man Chuck, and he's part of the original. He's not original, but he's part of the Real Talk Chronicles when it was in the house when we had 60 people and we were talking about everything. We cried, we laughed, we did a lot of things together. And this is my brother. So I'm so happy to have him on. And Chuck, give him a little background on who you are, brother.
First and foremost, I want to thank Bill for bringing me on. I've watched this show, and like I said, I've seen it evolve from in his living room, man, and it's touched a lot of people in so many ways. You know what I mean? So for it now to be something that's widespread, a person can tune in, and check it out directly online. That's a blessing. But for me, 33 years in the police department, I've done pretty much everything directly from a patrolman to a sergeant to lieutenant. Most of my time has been spent in organized crime as undercover, as an investigator, a sergeant in investigations, then back again as a lieutenant. I took out teams in Queens, Manhattan North, And then my last assignment prior to leaving was I was the undercover coordinator for the Detective Bureau. So between the first day on the job, I mean, I have a litany of different other assignments that I've had, but most of my time has been generally dealing with investigations, you know.
That's what's up. Thank you, Chuck.
Mhm.
To Chuck left, my right, I got my sister. I called her in, and it's a beautiful lady. I love her energy. I love the way she kicks it. We've had conversations before on things that I post a lot of times. For those that are my Facebook friends, you see I post a lot of things that are not, could be controversial to those that are afraid to converse about things. But for those that have an open mind and have good dialogue, this is what we do. So, Gina, introduce yourself and tell them your background, sis.
Hi, everyone. Of course, my name is Gina, and I am a mother of two. Live in Harlem, and by way of Detroit, actually, but I live in Harlem, been here for the last 20 something years. So I guess I have an opinion. Two kids in this world, I have an opinion.
Absolutely, and that's what's important. To the bottom of Gina, I have a sister that I've met, and once we connected on somebody else's Facebook page, we have been rocking together ever since. You know, we are like-minded. I love her husband. I love her energy. You know, she's passionate about it. Um, she is a woman of color. She doesn't hide from the fact that she is a Latina, but she knows her history. And that means so much to me because we have to understand who we are as people of color. And she doesn't shy from that. Nobody's telling her that she can't have rice con pollo and platanos. You know what I'm saying? But she knows that the history is it was one stop on the A train or the D train or the one train. And she reps that, and I appreciate her and her husband for doing that. So they are always family to the Real Talk Chronicles family. Alicia, tell them about you and who you are, sis.
Thank you. So, like he said, I'm Alicia. I spent about 10 years in the 4-8 precinct in the Bronx, and then I changed careers. Prior to that, I spent about 10 years in the military, so I've had several careers in my lifetime. I recently retired as a school administrator, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce my brother to Kevin. I'm going to let Kevin give his credentials at the end. He doesn't have to. You should already know who he is because he's with us every Wednesday and he's my co-host. But I'm going to let him say his credentials at the end and what he does with adduction. But to Kevin's right and my left under me is my brother Greg Tolson. He and I met him through our spiritual walk in life, Abyssinian Baptist Church, and I joined a ministry, and I needed that to help me. I felt like that's what I could give, and Greg was a leader in that thing. But we've hit it off so well, and we have a friendship. We don't talk as much as we should, but that's my brother. He knows he can call me, and I can call him anytime. And but we do something called the Blue Nile, and in the Blue Nile, we have helped so many children, mentor so many children, and become better people of color, and you know, young sisters and young men. And we've been doing this. Greg has been doing it longer than me. I think I'm going on maybe a 10-year anniversary, but Greg has been doing it longer than me. I respect him. He's a college grad. He is an educator. He is a scholar, and he's my brother. And I just want him to, Greg, introduce yourself and give people a background on what you do, and give them a little brief synopsis on the Blue Nile and what we do, please. You're muted. You're muted. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I muted you. I'm sorry. My bad. Hold on. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg. Originally from Washington, D.C. I've been living in New York for about 20 years now. Lived in a couple other great states as well and overseas for a little bit. Like Will said, I've been working in the financial service industry for about close to 30 years now, I think. And but I've been also, as Bill stated, met Bill basically through Abyssinian, but also we started working together at the Blue Nile Rites of Passage, which is a rites of passage program for young people from the diaspora between the ages of 11 and about 16. And it's a program that teaches you about 7 different disciplines in life. And we give you a life mentor, give the youth a life mentor. And we basically prepare them for life, in this country, but also make sure they understand their great history and tradition. And I've been working there for about 17, I think it's 17, it might be 18, I got to count again.
Yeah.
And I've worked on many different levels in the program and chair of the education committee, program director, deputy director. I'm now on the board of directors for the program. But it's a great, Bill was one of our mentors and he teaches. And, to be quite honest, I've learned as much from Bill, from him teaching the youth as the youth have learned. And he's just a great guy and much respect for him, and very honored to be asked to do the show. So and I do watch the show when I have a chance. The only time I miss it is because it's the same time as the Bible study.
Yes,
so
I know.
Sometimes I try to catch a little bit and then I'll go off to Bible study. I'll see if I can catch the tail end, but that's the only reason I don't watch every week. But it's a great show, and I agree with everyone who spoke about it. It's a really good show. Thank you for inviting me.
And absolutely. And I think Chuck came with me one time to do the Blue Nile, right, Chuck? I think, is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, Chuck, yeah. So it's a beautiful thing. And like I said, I have one other person coming in. She's tardy for the party, but that's family, so that's what they do. And it's all right though. But and last but not least, I have to give props to my co-host Kevin Branzetti. Kevin, just give him a brief synopsis of your professionalism and where you're from, and also give him a little insight on what you do now, because I think that always has to go spoken. We have to speak about that in what you're doing, and I applaud you, and I will always try to help you. The fact that I am not there with you to do it a lot of times, but the thing is, as long as we can keep mentioning it, it's something that's important, and that's the way I can share it. So go ahead, Kev.
All right, thank you, Bill. Quickly, retired NYPD. Did a whole bunch of things in my career. Started off in the 2-8, finished off in Intel. I now work for another law enforcement agency. Really, the last part of a better part of the last decade or more, my work-related stuff is investigating violent extremists, from neo-Nazis to ISIS to Al-Qaeda and anything else you could think of. My off-duty job is I co-founded the National Child Protection Task Force. It is a bunch of law enforcement and private sector professionals who just pitch in with cases with children. We help with live abduction cases, some stale missing kid cases, child exploitation cases, trafficking cases, wherever we can. Technology has moved up so rapidly in the last decade, it's impossible for law enforcement to keep up. So we try to keep them in the loop and give them whatever assets we can at no cost whatsoever.
Thank you. So everybody out there, I'm going to ask all my panel right now, on panelists. We have, I think, 2 more coming in, 2 more. And as the law enforcement knows, we call them civilians. We have 2 more civilians coming in. And when they get a chance, the beautiful thing about it is this is Real Talk Chronicles. The opinions that we share is from the experiences that we've all have done. That's the organic aspect of Real Talk Chronicles. Like Kevin has said, I don't know if he said it in the green room or before. He said, like, I don't script anything, because the bottom line is I want people to think on their toes, and I want their emotions involved in it. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you're on YouTube, please like it, subscribe to it, share it, tell a friend. This is what we do. The most positive, the hardest thing to do is share positivity and change. And people don't like change. Kevin knows we share this, and we ask people to come on all the time. Whites, black, Spanish. We don't care who you are. Just come on, give your opinion. If you racist, it'll come out. You'll say it. You know what I'm saying? If you're a bigot, you'll say it. If you're delusional or you're ignorant, it'll show, because you articulate yourself. You know what I'm saying? we don't have to put Real Talk Chronicles does not put words in your mouth. It's the thing that you spew that is a beautiful thing. And this is what we are trying to do. But the bottom line is tonight, you know, shout out to all law enforcement and all our civilian followers. Thank you for all. Listen, what we say is not anything against any people of any ethnic background. And I say that because law enforcement, I'm sure they look at me sometime and be like, oh, Bill, he's anti-blue. And I'm not anti-blue. How could I be anti anything that I did? You understand what I'm saying? Anti the BS that comes with the people that work in blue. And I think Kevin kind of follows that sentiment too. But the beautiful thing about it is there's different perspectives, different eyes. And that's the whole gist of what we're talking about tonight. And we're going to talk about some other things. But what we left off last week was Kevin and I were talking about seeing things from different perspectives and not being judged because his eyes are a different color. And me understanding people of color's plight, and it's a whole different energy. You know, Kevin, I don't know if we can pull it up right now. Shout out to everybody chiming in, of course. We see you all from the YouTube and Facebook Live. Kevin, I want you to pull up that post about the 4 officers real quick. I just want to put that caption up real quick. So I want people, we're going to start off with that dialogue. Can you get, is that
which 4 officers, Bill?
The one that abused the black guy, they beat him up, and then they talked about him. I just want to put that post up so people can read the caption.
The Louisiana?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that yeah. So I just want to put that up because I want to start with that conversation with people here. So everybody, like I said, as Kevin gets that, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Like I said, I applaud my panel for being here because a lot of times, I'm going to tell you this, people have a problem showing their face with their voice. And that's something that we need to understand. Like, it, you know, there's nothing wrong with being the dart on the wall. You know what I'm saying? Like being the bullseye for the dart. Because the bottom line is, if you're believing what you say, then you have no problems backing up what you say. I have no problems. Anybody that's ever worked with me, I have no problems saying what I said because I put my work behind my voice. Just like Greg, he's a mentor. Alicia, she's passionate. Sometimes I be wanting to say, "Yo, sis, calm down. You about to you about to give them the business." Gina has had to check people on my Facebook page because sometimes people don't like what she said. Chuck has, I've spoken to him behind the scenes, and I know his passion, and I know what he feels about being a person of color. And going up the ranks and then still being a supervisor on his job. So all the things that he's had to deal with. So, and Kevin, also being a white officer at times and then becoming a white supervisor. And no matter what he do, he's deemed white. You know what I'm saying? So that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Even though he could be fair.
I may add, Bill,
yeah, go ahead, Alicia. Please.
I may add, I am very passionate. That is true. However, what I do notice is that when men are passionate, they are judged slightly different than when women are passionate.
Alicia, so, and we're gonna talk about that too. No, but you know what's so funny? I say that because you know what's so funny. Alicia and I, we've formed Voltron on certain things, and sometimes when we see how people kind of come at her, or they'll come at me, and we'll be like, "Yo, did you see this?" And the things that so the reason why I say passionate is because the bottom line is it's education, and the fact that you're educated with it, and you know you're a scholar, you're a teacher too. You know what I'm saying? And people don't understand.
I don't. Yes. I'm not going to take nonsense from people.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And these are things that people need to understand and recognize. So I say all that to say that this is a beautiful thing. Hold on. I got some other people coming in right now. I got my brother. And let's see, who else is this? Yes. Okay. Hold on. I got my brother, my neighbor. I got my brother, Courtney Claxton, in the building. What's up, Courtney? How are you, brother? Can you hear me?
Hey, Bill. What's going on? Yeah, I can hear you. Hello, guys.
so Courtney is my neighbor, and he's a friend of mine. I enjoy the energy that we've talked about. I just want Courtney to give a background on who he is, so he knows this. He knows this life from being a man of color. But the bottom line is Courtney is also a military man. He's a professional. So Courtney, just give him a background on who you are real quick, and we're gonna go to something that Kevin and I put up. So go ahead,
All right.
Courtney.
Thank you, Bill. A little slip of the tongue there, huh? Blackground.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, hello everyone. My name is Courtney, and I'm Bill's neighbor. We're glad to have him from New York. I believe you guys lost one of your finest, so that's my
There you
plug
go.
for Bill. A little bit about me. I was born in the islands. I moved here when I was a kid. I've been here most of my life. I claimed Philly. I have some military service. I did 9 years active duty. I'm at the VA. And as the guest, well, one of your panel says, you know, she has opinions, and I'm sure everyone else has, and I'm interested in sharing mine also in a respectful way.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. I have another person coming in. I have Paula coming in. What's up, Paula? How are you?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm fine and hope all is well with everyone on the panel.
Good, Paula. Just give them a background on who you are and what you do and what you have done before we go to this clip. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I worked for the state of New York as a special ed teacher for 32 years. I'm currently retired due to an injury, and I serve on the community board in my district, which is 2. I'm the treasurer and I'm the housing and land use chair. I previously, as of August of last year, I was the president of the 41st Precinct Community Council, and I'm enjoying my retirement. I have a passion for advocacy, especially in, human rights, criminal rights, and housing. So that's really my peeve. I have 2 children that are grown, and I have 5 grandchildren who live still in the Bronx. And my granddaughters, which are 18 now and 14, they also advocate and have been advocating and volunteer since they were 5 years old.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for coming. Paula, if you're on Facebook, you can share it. Courtney, you can tell your people you're on YouTube. Right now, what Kevin and I have put up, Kevin, okay, let's go to the topic of hand. And this is what I want to talk about. Right now, everybody, if you can see this, these were 4 officers that arrested somebody in Louisiana. Troopers boasted about beating a person of color. And I'm gonna drag it down and let's see if I can show some of this. Kevin, can you bring it down a little bit so we can read some of the captions of what they're saying? Because maybe you're controlling it. All right, let's see if we can. Okay, Kevin, you might have to be able to read it better than me. Louisiana state troopers, police officers joke in a group text about beating a black man in a high-speed chase last year, saying that the whooping would have gave him the nightmares for a long time, according to new court documents. Right? Is that what it said? He's going to be sore tomorrow for sure. Trooper Jacob Brown, who was charged in the case. Kevin, finish it off for me because it's kind of blurry for me. Go ahead.
Hang on 1 second. I'm sorry, I had to find my mute. Charged in the case, resigned Wednesday. Some of his texts, warms my heart knowing we could educate the young man. There are lots of these things throughout this. I don't want to sit here and read the whole.
No, we just give people a brief synopsis.
What I did read is the internal investigation found. Yeah, what I did read was the internal investigation found, and that's the internal investigation, said right here, at no time did Harris resist arrest. So this is not a, resisting arrest, we're having a fight. This sounds like he ran, they caught him, and this was punishment.
Right. So we're going to come out of this.
There's not much I can say on that one.
No, and not that you should. I mean, the bottom line is, so Kevin, like a lot of this conversation, and we can come out of this. Kevin, a lot of times scrutiny comes with the fact that
the cops are going to jail.
Exactly, right? But the bottom line is, how?
Yeah, that's
Like,
it. I got no good thing to say. I got no defense to say for this. You know, these comments, you know, bet he won't run from a grown bear again. Bet he'll, you know, he don't even cross to Louisiana anymore. Still digesting that ass whooping, right? If they found they beat this man for no reason, they're going to jail.
right.
I got
Now,
no
now,
defense.
no, I'm not, and I'm really not asking you for a defense. What I'm asking you for right now is that give me your ideology and your thought process of the fact that a white officer that protect and took an oath and did it to the best of your ability feels when you see something like that. That's what I need to find out from this.
Somebody gave a criminal a badge.
Right.
That's it. And you know, look, there are 800 plus thousand cops in the United States. 800,000. This is the rare. This group, in my what I've seen in my life. You know, to me, this is an easy case, right? The arrest part, easy. They did what they did. They're going to go do time. I got no issue with that. How do we look back at these officers, how they were hired, how they filed, what was on their psychological report, what was their history in the academy, history as young cops? Was there something that was missed that we could learn from it so that we can weed out? Unfortunately, we're going to have cops like this. They're going to exist. You can't have 800,000 people of anything and have 800,000 gems. You can't. You're going to have a few beasts. I just like to know, is there something we can do in the future to prevent and have less animals on our, you know,
and what do you think? And that's a good question. And we're going to stay with that too, because the bottom line is, how does that make you feel as a white officer? And I've worked with you that has, like I said, took an oath, and you did your job to the best of your ability, and then you see white officers, because you hear the plight of people of color all the time talk about, yo, the white officers did this, the white officers did that, and then you still see it to this day, 2020, 2021, and then like you I know you bleed blue, and we're going to talk about that later, but how does that make you feel that, like, here it's almost like, here we go again?
Bill, I don't, you know, like I said, it tarnished us all. Every single one of us, this hurts us. This hurts every good cop. This is going to get good cops spit on. Like I have been in public things. I've been at private events, and I've been yelled at and spit at and cursed at because of some other cop. People who don't know me from a hole in a wall. I said, at private events, at a Christmas party, at the time it was my ex-wife at her job, you know, berated and yelled at. Mm-hmm. It's not what we want. I don't like bad police work. I don't like cops who just shit can things, who embarrass us publicly. This is god awful. Right, you know, I said, and it hurts us all. There's no good thing coming out of this, except for the fact that they got arrested. You know, I'm happy to see there's an arrest, because if there wasn't, then we'd have far more problems on our hand.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going around to the panel, and panel, understand that we have other panelists too that want to comment. So please be direct and precise to your conversation, because like I said, I depending on who can be here as long as they can. Chuck, you're a lieutenant, you're a supervisor, you're a man of color, but also we are law enforcement. When you hear this, and we see that it's still happening to this day, we've seen people of color talk about the man was against us, they did this. There wasn't cameras in the past. Now there's cameras, and people still, some law enforcement people that we've worked with still do not understand and recognize that people of color have been mistreated. Like, what's your take on what you saw, what you read, and just give a brief synopsis of what you feel about that?
You know, there's a particular point where I honestly, and I'm going to be very clear, sometimes I wish we could reverse the roles.
Right.
Sounds crazy, right? Let's reverse the roles. Let's say the 800, as he was speaking of, let them all be men of color, right? As the dominant. And then all of a sudden, excuse the expression, some white cat does something stupid, and we beat the shit out of them. My question at that point is, okay, would it have the same gravity? Would it have the same weight? It probably would. Wrong is wrong and right is right. You don't go around beating another human being, regardless of their color, regardless of whether they're black, regardless of their white, just unjustifiably, just because you feel, oh, well, today's one of those days. And the point I also want to bring out is when he was saying, well, you got these 4 gentlemen. Well, yeah, there's a psychological process. There's a reviewing process. There's supposed to be a funneling process to weed out who we take and who we don't take. The overall system itself has to start there. There has to be a more in-depth way of being able to find out exactly psychologically, what is the character, where's the heart, what is the overall thought basis or the process that these guys look and assume things. Like, for instance, I'll give you a prime example. When I first came through the police department, I failed the psychological, right? The first one. Now, I failed it because during the course of one of the questions, they posed to me, if in fact a man stole a chicken directly from a supermarket, what would I do? Now, the proprietor wants him locked up. It's in the middle of Harlem. The guy stole the chicken. What exactly would you do? I told the individual that I would go in my pocket, pull out whatever the chicken is, especially after a crowd ensues. They're yelling and they're screaming about, well, he's stealing the chicken because he's unemployed and he's got to feed his family. But then the proprietor is indicating very clearly that this guy's done this several times. So I said, Lord, I will go in my pocket and I will give the proprietor money and I'm going to let the guy keep the chicken and he's going to go home. Now, the person that was doing the psychological said, well, aren't you going to pull out your gun? Aren't you going to wave it at the crowd? Aren't you going to tell them to back up? And I was like, no, I'm going to stick my hand in my pocket and I'm going to give him the money for the chicken and let the guy go about his business. Because suppose I'm a police officer, I have the right to use discretion. For whatever reason, they actually failed me because of that answer. Because of that answer, they failed me. Because the overall mindset was it's either black or white. It has to be either you're totally legal, you got to stay within the confines of the law, but you don't have the ability to look at anyone as a human being. This guy broke the law. He stole the freaking chicken. You were supposed to lock him up. Or if you had no radio, get on the phone, call for backup, but you have to lock him up. So
they
once
want to enforce the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit.
exactly.
Yeah. I'm coming to you, Alicia. Hold on. Give me a sec. We're gonna rock. We're gonna let you rock. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Chuck.
So that being said, it's sometimes, like you said very clearly, not all white officers are bad officers, but there has to be a better way of screening these guys psychologically. All of us, regardless of who it is. I'm not saying black, white, or Hispanic. There has to be a better way of giving them a 60 questionnaire and having them sit with a psychologist for a quick, brief moment after taking an MMPI or CPI and all these yes, no, maybe so questions, and then asking them questions based on drawings. There has to be something more in depth because the end result is these same people that pass this supposed psychological profile, when they get on the job, for whatever reason, whatever their biases, whatever their prejudices, it doesn't come out in that test. It doesn't come to fruition until they put a gun on their hip or until they step out into the street.
Now, hold that thought. That's an awesome comment. I'm gonna come to Gina after we everybody comments, and then we'll open it up and have a nice little dialogue about it before we go to something else. Go ahead, Gina. Give me your thought process. You're a mother. That could have been your son. You could have been your brother. You have a brother. It could have been me, your friend. What was your thought process when you heard that and you read that little comment? Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sure. First of all, it's very disturbing, and I believe that, well, I'm happy if they were arrested. I'm happy that they were arrested. But Kevin, I have to respectfully disagree with you as far as saying that things are easy, or this was easy, or that this was an easy open and shut case. Because far too often we've seen with our own eyes the crime that the officer has committed on an individual, and they get off scot-free. So it's not that easy, at least from my point of view. It's not that easy to actually have an officer arrested. And we know that even with our own eyes, we see the crime and they are still able to walk free. To Chuck's point, I totally agree with the psychological evaluation periodically, like we go to the doctor and do our checkup. It should happen probably every year or twice a year, because your job is very strenuous and very mentally and psychologically, psychologically and mentally and emotionally draining day in, day out, and dangerous. So to that, I am glad that they were picked up. But if that were to happen to someone that I love, I would be very, 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 very upset. It's just no place in the force for that type of behavior for an officer. No place
Absolutely.
for it.
Thank you, Gina. I'm gonna go to you, Alicia. Alicia, give me your comfort. I mean, what's your take on that? You know, you're a woman of color, even though your skin is a fair skin. Your husband, you know, your friend, me, hypothetically, people that you may know. Like, give me your thought process on that.
So I know we're talking about looking at someone's psychological profile when they come in, but a lot of this is indoctrinated once someone becomes a police officer. A lot of this behavior is condoned in the police department by superiors, by fellow officers. It is people go into that culture, and when we're going through a period of time when there's so much unrest, and a lot of it is, you know, racially motivated, people get emboldened to act a certain way because they're part of the larger group. And it's not something that the police department is, you know, comes out forcefully against unless they're in front of cameras. Behind the scenes, me, from being a police officer and having been witness, you know, to hearing the chatters and some of the racially insensitive or racially biased statements that go on in the police department, I could tell you that you can come in and have a great psychological profile and get in the police department. You get around all of these people who are mentoring you. You're brand new. You start getting indoctrinated into this. If you are, you know, if you happen to be an officer that gets assigned with an officer that's, you know, doesn't have high morals, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that I think goes unaddressed, that we do need to have very candid, serious conversations about and be honest about what really goes on in the police department. I have a lot of friends who I worked with in the 4-8 who claim they never saw any signs of systemic racism or any kind of racism. And I don't know, I guess it can be, you know, perspective. Maybe someone is more comfortable around certain people to say certain things. I don't know. But I know from my experience, I heard, I saw, I got into a lot of verbal disagreements with people and, you know, have had harsh words. The overall, you know, the majority of the people I worked with were great. But you always had that, you know, one or two people who you know had that question mark and you knew they were racist. And you assign someone with that person, it's kind of easy to, you know, you're trying to learn the culture in the police department. You're trying to be one of the boys or one of the girls. It's easy to just think in terms of blue, but it's deeper than that. If we really want to improve relationships with the general public, then we need to start being honest and start holding people accountable when no one's watching, when you're having those private conversations, or on Facebook, if you've gone into a lot of the NYPD or other police departments pages and they think everyone is like-minded there and they feel they're free to talk, they say some of the most racist, derogatory things, sexist things I've ever heard. So it's in the culture of the police department, and it needs to be rooted out. And we can't do that if we keep pretending that that's not happening.
Yo, Alicia, you and I know, Kevin knows, Chuck knows. It is so funny that you hit it right on the head. The fact that they feel that they have an open forum, like the group we have called the Rant, or these private groups the things that they say. And you know what's always upset me, and then I'm going to go to Greg. Um, what has upset me is that the fact that they don't think about what their fellow officers of color feel. It's just the fact that if it's not blue, then it's like if you're not blue, then you're against. It's us blue against the world, and it shouldn't be that. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Alicia, for that.
The same thing for everyone. Blue does not mean you just get to say and do whatever the heck you want without consequences, right? Blue means, to me anyway, you uphold the law, you treat people with respect, you treat people the way you want your son, daughter, mother, father to be treated. And I think that, you know, sometimes those individuals that are bad apples tend to be more outspoken than the rest, and they kind of, you know, put out all of this forceful, you know, negative rhetoric, and people are either, you know, they don't want conflict, they don't want trouble, they don't want to be viewed as a traitor to the blue, so they stay quiet. But it's time to change that. It really is.
Absolutely. Paula, I'm gonna come to you as a civilian. When you saw that, I'm unmute you. Oh, what was your take on it? You know, if you have children, just give us your brief synopsis of what you felt and what you saw when you see you've heard it. You know, we are people of color, we are people of age, tenure. That like, are we tired of hearing about oh, listen, you know, they didn't comply. You know, this is a case that these officers exposed themselves, that this wasn't about complying at any situation. This was about, like, listen, you know, they're bragging about beating a person of color behind and what he won't do in the future. Paula, give me your take on that. Where are you?
Well, it's funny that this type of scenario has come up because my son was 14 years old and he was on my mom's stoop standing there, and two officers, both Caucasian, told my son, you know, walk by the building, and he was there, you know, just standing there. So the officers walked by him, then they turned around and came back and said, do you live here? And he said, why? And so one of the officers said, what the fuck you mean, why, nigga? I said, do you live here? So my mother lived upstairs. So one of the tenants was coming out the building who was an adult, and they caught the officers saying the word nigga, right? And it became such a huge, I mean, like at the next precinct council meeting, like mostly it might have been like 75 people in that meeting in reference to that situation that happened to my son. And I told my son, you know, I'm a 60s kid. My mother grew up with telling us, when you see a cop, because we can't relate to having black officers in our neighborhood. When I came up, everyone was white. So when my mother taught us, when you see a police officer, turn around and run the other way. You understand? So when I went into that meeting, I told him that's the era that I was raised in. Now it's different because you have officers that look like us. They talk, you know, they might be from the neighborhood, they might not, but we can relate because of our skin tone, right? But when this type of stuff happens, I blame the counties and the government, because you have those southern states that are majority black, that white officers go in and police, but yet you can't go in a white neighborhood and police white folks as a black officer. That's disturbing. I mean, let something like that happen, like the situation in Howard Beach. Let's take the situation with Rodney King. There was some officers of color in that situation. However, they don't send them, you know, up into Throsneck, Riverdale, where it's predominantly white neighborhoods, Howard Beach. You don't see not one Hispanic or black officer on patrol in Howard Beach. And now they have this new thing called the sundown towns. Have y'all heard of that?
No, what's that?
The sundown towns is when you in a neighborhood that's predominantly white and you let that sun go down and you still in that neighborhood, you will find yourself either murdered or seriously harmed by a group of white folks, and they will chase you down, beat you, if not to death, beat you beyond recognition. And that's like the new thing. That's the new wave now.
You know,
It's
it's funny you should say that, because when I was growing up as a kid in the area of Throgs Neck in the Bronx, where my aunt used to live, it was the same philosophy. Like, we could all be out on the street playing out in front of the building, but once the sun came down, because at that time it was predominantly white up near Throgs Neck, that's when all the white cats used to come out, and they used to chase all the people of color, and with sticks and all that. So we knew we had to be inside my aunt's house, but when the sun went down, this is in the Bronx.
And that's crazy. We're gonna talk about that, Paula. I want to get Courtney's and Greg's thing, but we're gonna come back and we're gonna open it up and have a nice little dialogue about that. Courtney, you saw it, you read that statement. You and I have had these conversations.
Yeah.
I know you know you're a man of color. You have a son, my little man. You have daughters.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, you've been in the military, so you've seen a different perspective from a vast. You have vast knowledge on a lot of things. What is your take when you saw that, or when you read that comment? And we've heard about people of color just being targeted and put in certain situations. Give me your take on that, brother.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about this particular story, but from what was discussed, am I surprised? No. This is just another manifestation of systemic racism. And in the military, I would say that we knew who the dirtbag sailors were. And I'm pretty sure, cops have the same feature where they know who the dirtbag cops are. But I think it's more prevalent than we think. And, they just don't want to tackle it. I mean, who's going to be the police if they really go in and root out all the people who hold prejudices? But for some reason, this story, I'm not particularly outraged as many people might be, because, they were just discussing what they did like it's no big deal. Is it right? Absolutely not. Should they be charging all of that? But I'm not particularly outraged by this particular case of like police violence.
Hey, Courtney, it's almost like it felt like a level of comfortability with that fact.
You've become so desensitized to like outrageous shit that something like this is. I mean, a lot of people are not going to even. I mean, I appreciate you guys taking the opportunity to bring it up in this forum. One case is too much, but we're not surprised. They're just talking about what they do almost every day. I mean, not all cops, but quite a few of them do this shit every day. And they were just talking about it after. I guess it was a good ass whooping. So, it's kind of par for the course. And I know a lot of people feel that way, and I'm interested in this, to learning more about what I can like bring to my community from a law enforcement standpoint. What you guys are doing to like combat this issue.
Absolutely. We're going to open it up too. Greg, let me ask you a question. We mentor young men, I facilitate, you facilitate, we talk, we have conversations with our young brothers and sisters on how to interact with law enforcement, just how to be better people of color. But like, give me your synopsis of what you saw and what you what you read and what you feel on this thing. Okay. Unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I'm just hearing about this one. I was just digesting the story about the guy who shot up, killed 8 people at a spa, and I was reading all of that. Not to change.
And we're gonna talk about that too.
I'm not gonna change the topic. But the brother, I think is Courtney. That's the desensitized. That's the first thing that came to my head when I was looking and reading. And with all due respect to Kevin, I don't think it's a closed case at all. We've come into a pattern in general in the society when it comes to police brutality, the killing of people of color with no real reason from police officers. And that pattern is now, because of some a little bit more heightened, sensitivity to it, comes to the media, brings it up. They take them away, they charge them, and then a couple months later, you'll read a line, second, third page, 3 pages in, and all the charges have been dropped. Or they get a very light sentence to what By that time, because of this 24-hour news media, we've already gone on to 6 or 7 other stories about the same thing. And then the fact that they didn't die, and I hate to say it this way, but the fact they didn't die, it's like, oh, okay, he didn't even get killed. I'm not saying everybody thinks like that, but that's how I took it. It's like, nah, as soon as I heard it, they didn't kill him. Okay, they'll charge him. They'll put him on some type of probation. Maybe they'll lose a couple dollars, and then they'll be right back out there. That's what I feel. Now, if they get locked up, okay, that's one. But the only reason we even know about it is because of, the kind of technology we have. You got people who can film. This happened, say, even maybe 10 years ago. We might not even known about it, maybe locally. But, I wouldn't have known about it living in New Jersey. So I just think that, I agree, concur. I'm not going to just repeat what everyone else has said, because I agree with those statements. But the thing that I'm afraid of is desensitivity. It's almost getting to the point. I'd like to think that, I can handle these things and I can really follow, but sometimes I'm getting tired. And the tired is just coming from that same pattern, the same damn thing over and over. You have this situation, the police have just, for no good reason, have harmed somebody, killed somebody, gets into the news cycle. We get all up, outraged, which we should. By the time we get to a trial, we have gone through so many other cases of the same or worse stuff that we've forgotten about it or it goes away. And I'm a little fed up with it. And the fed up is turned into desensitivity to the point where I read it, I shake my head, and I just hope the right thing is done.
Thank you. So, Kevin, I want you to, if you can, reply, and then I'll read some. Well, matter of fact, let me read some comments. Cynthia from on the YouTube side says she said speak it, Alicia. This isn't accountability. Speak on it, everybody. Pam said no one is supposed to be above the law, and police need to be beyond reproach on dismissal, on the dismissed. Let me read some other comments that people are chiming in. Be mindful where active good cops get complaints, but then there are those who are overlooked because of their skin color. That's what Cynthia Washington is saying. Preventive maintenance is a key, like Kevin mentioned. Follow the jacket from once they started their careers, which is an important thing. Kevin, I want you to chime in on what people have said, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody. And by show of hand, we'll open this dialogue. Raise your hand, and then I'll call on you, whatever, after Kevin responds. But Kevin, give me your insight. You can, rebuttal.
I hear what people are saying, and desensitize. I think Greg, you had said it first. Desensitize is probably the right word. That we can become desensitized. What I'm saying before, and I'm saying now about this is, I'm at least, happy that the internal investigation. So now we're seeing that this police department did it right. It seems right. They put it out there publicly. There was no resisting. So they're not trying to cover it up. That to me is a good sign. I get we're desensitized, and I know we're seeing too much of this, but I'm looking at this as a good sign, because I would argue that 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't have seen that out of that police department. We would have seen, or nothing. We might have heard nothing. So the fact that police department, it wasn't DOJ coming in and doing the investigation, it was their own department. That to me is a really good sign in life. It's a little disturbing, Bill, when you sent me this article today, I said to you, didn't we talk about this 2 weeks ago? It wasn't this one. We talked about a different one 2 weeks ago out of Louisiana, with the guy with the minor car accident who wound up being dead. And it blows my mind that
we'll play that later on too, because the bottom line is that's a good thing that you mentioned too, Kev, that a lot of times people were talking about this was a racial incident, but we want to just also highlight how professional the officers were during that car stop multiple times.
That's a different thing. We'll show that one later. But I'm talking about the previous one in Louisiana where the guy died in the car accident. They said from the car accident, the car had a little dent and his head was smashed to pieces.
Oh yeah, that was a different one. That was a totally different one.
And I will tell you from my perspective, from what I'm doing in my child protection task force, Louisiana state police investigators, some of the best in the country by far. I work tons of cases with them. God forbid you were ever in a scenario where you had a family member who was abducted, kid missing. if it was my kid, I want them helping me. That's how good their investigators are. I just firsthand experience. So it blows my mind from my experience with Louisiana State Police of seeing great people. And then I look at this.
But Kevin, let me just interject. What we're talking about, abduction of children, is totally different from what we're seeing.
Oh,
because
yeah,
the bottom line,
I
don't want you to mix the two, because the bottom line is that's like me saying, I knew a guy and he was my best friend, but then come to find out that he did something disrespectful in the police force, and then to say like, well, he was my best friend. I didn't think that he would ever do that. The bottom line is, just because they're good at chasing down abductions of children, don't mean some people can't be
I didn't say it doesn't mean.
Yeah. All right.
I was just giving you my perspective, what I've seen. I've seen 2 incidents with the state police. One both of them a chase where one gets hurt badly and the other one's killed, and both look like criminal acts to me. And my experience with Louisiana police has been nothing but positive. Now, again, yes, it's a different perspective, but I was just to me it's hard to get my head around.
So I'm gonna open it up to everybody in this part. Anybody that want to comment, raise your hand. I'll call on you, because the bottom line is, the thing is that what we're seeing is historically officers, like, maybe let me ask this question. What do you think we could do to change putting officers like that in positions of that kind of power? Like, we talked about psychological exams. Chuck brought that up. Alicia mentioned some things, but the bottom line is it's still happening. The bottom line is people of color don't have the power. Like, when I speak, I tell children today, take the test, become law enforcement. So the bottom line is you can be part of the system, because the bottom line is it didn't happen on my watch. I know it didn't happen on Chuck's watch. I know it didn't happen on Alicia's watch. I know it didn't happen on Kevin's watch. You understand what I'm saying? And I hope I can say that it didn't happen on Kevin's watch, because the bottom line is,
wait, why'd you just pick me out of that? You worked with me.
No. That's why I said I apologize if that came off different.
That's cold, Bill. That's cold.
Thanks, Alicia. But the bottom line is, because what's so funny, Kevin, as a man of your ethnic background, sometimes we know in law enforcement, and Chuck knows this, Alicia knows this, sometimes people get along to go along. I'm not saying you did it. I'm not saying Alicia did it. I'm not saying Chuck did it. But the bottom line is, I never wanted anybody to feel comfortable. And Chuck and Kevin, you co-sign this or disagree with me. I didn't want anybody to ever feel comfortable that they could say some real crazy shit about somebody of color in front of me. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you and I, we've had these conversations in the car together, like, yo, da 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 da. So I don't know about anybody else's walk. And I mean, Courtney, he's been in the military, so Greg, Paula, Gina, and Chuck and Alita, we've all worked in an environment that has been predominantly white controlled. And like I said, Kevin, I apologize that the fact that you are the white voice tonight. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I mean, you are the white voice. That's what comes to Real Talk Chronicles.
I want to chime in.
Yeah, go ahead. Chime in.
So since you brought that up, as far as like it's predominantly white controlled, I was watching on MSNBC Ari Melber, I believe his name is, where he took it all the way back to slavery time, to approaching how law enforcement became to be. So basically it went from KKKs, and so now it's to police officers. So they went from when they weren't able to be vocal and kill openly as far as KKK, now there are people placed in the department now with that mentality to kill Black people. Now there's a report. Like I said, I'm not making this up. It's something that I've been watching on TV, and I didn't follow the story other than that particular night that I watched. So he's doing a report on from KKK to police officers because he's trying to figure out how does this all become. So it's the mentality of one who joins the force. I would say at this point the majority, and so I think it is a secret society for the most part. I'm a civilian. This is what I believe. I believe it's a secret society for most part, that they are pretty much out to get. They have this thing about Black people or people of color, and it stems from slavery or KKK to KKK days, or white supremacy days. So from going into hiding from KKK white supremacy, now they can continue to do the work that they were doing back then, being in the law enforcement. And the only other thing that I wanted to say, I'm sorry, I was writing down notes.
No, hold on, Gina. Hold that thought. I want to come back to that question.
Okay.
After that, Greg, Courtney, and then I want Alicia and Chuck to comment on that. What do you think about what she said when she said that what did you say, Gina, about white supremacy, white society?
White supremacy and KKK. So once they went sort of, so to speak, in hiding, so to speak, because it was, I think, at a time where it was being, gosh, I wish I could remember the report that he did. So what they did was they became officers instead. And so now, right. So now there's been passed down.
Let's stay with that. So the bottom line is, do you guys feel that a lot of people, and I'll start with you, Greg, and then I'll go to you, Courtney, and I'll go to you, Alicia and Chuck, and then Kevin, of course, you could follow it.
Right.
Hold on,
so now there's been passed down.
Let's stay with that. So the bottom line is, Paula, you're gonna have to. You guys feel that a lot of people. So yeah. So yeah, I want to get your take on that. What's your feelings on what Gina just said, that you think that a lot of times people in those powers and those negative, we're gonna use that word, negative of ideologies, got in these positions to hurt people of color. Greg, give me a comment, Courtney, and then I'll go to Alicia and then Chuck. Go ahead. And Paul.
Well, I definitely think that's possible. I probably have a hard time believing that it was some coordinated effort throughout the country to get that. But what I do think in how it was done, or how it is done, is that background checks, all these psychological tests, you can find out a person who they are and what they believe in not too hard, especially with social media. Even before social media, you can do your background checks. That's one of the controls, I think, that the police departments have on trying to bring in the right people, good people. If you're ignoring these things, if you're letting them slide by, then once they're in the department, then the damage is already done. And then once you're in the department, if you're not doing what Louisiana is apparently doing with these cops that, to beat the hell out this guy, and doing the right thing, when all the codes, the blue code and the blue, family or fraternity, if you're all supporting each other and you're making, you're putting pressure on certain people who want to do the right thing. I've seen, different documentaries and things like that to support that. So, I'm not sure how much of a consolidated effort across the country, but I do understand and I do agree that if you are letting people in with certain psychological profiles and backgrounds, knowing who they are, and you let them in anyway, depending on who the hierarchy is or what's being done, once they're in, seems like it's like working for the government. You can't get fired from the government. Right, you have to bring in an AK-47 with white powder under your nose, and then they send you to rehab. And it seems like that's the same thing. And once you're in, you're not getting out. So if you enforce the controls that you have right now that exist, that's how you can help, change it. But yeah, once these kind of individuals are in, the damage is already done. And then from there it spreads. They may recommend their friends or whatever. And the more you have in there, the harder it's going to be. So I do believe what Gina said is possible, but I think it's more from an individual standpoint. And the damages are, either way, the damage is already done.
But Greg, you just proved my point though. Mm-hmm. Just what the comment that you just said at the end, you just actually said what I said. Once you're in, you're in. That's like a secret society. That is like saying that once they make it in, which is the goal of most, is then they're in. Then they're able to do whatever they want to do, however they want to do it, when they want to do it, because they're backed by the badge, they're backed by that society, so to speak. And it continues throughout the generations. Yeah, I totally believe that.
And hold that thought, Gina. Kevin, give me your take on that real quick, and then I'm going to go to Courtney, Paula, Alicia, and then Chuck. Go ahead, Kev. Give me your take on that. What you just said.
Well, I did not get into the police department via the KKK.
well, don't take it personal.
No, come on, we're joking here. No, Gina, I understand what you're saying. I hear it, and I get that perspective. I don't believe that the KKK pushed all of its members into the police department. Are there members of the KKK in police departments? 100% there are, without a doubt. Are there racist, vile cops? Yes, there are. Do I think there were more 2 decades ago and 3 decades ago? Yeah, I think so. I think the police departments, and I look at NYPD. I think 30 years ago, if we beat up a guy on the street, we would have got away with it without blinking an eye. Do I think we get away with it today? No. But I also think the mentality within the police department isn't to beat up a guy for running. Was that an old school mentality? You can ask some older cops. You can ask some older criminals in New York City who were arrested in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They'll tell you, yeah, you've got a beating for running, right? Like that. There was an old school thing.
And let me tell you something, Alicia, Chuck, we can all contest to that. We were all taught if you run, you get an ass whipping.
Yeah. And that's changed. Like the NYPD, I would say, would be one of the first ones to have come out of that. I ain't never seen a man cuffed, hit, period. Never. I ain't never put a stick to another man's head. I've arrested hundreds of people. Never. I never split a man's face open. Personally, I didn't want anybody's blood on me. It just didn't really serve a purpose. Punched a lot of guys in the gut. Used a lot of times I used pepper spray, and we wrestled a whole bunch of people. Right, and that was kind of how it got done. So going into this, the NYPD and police departments have slowly changed that mentality of you get an ass whipping, but it still exists out there. It clearly does, and it's seeing. This is why I'm going back to my hope thing of this, of where it's going. Seeing that police department, internal affairs said they did it, they had no right to it, and arrested them, is saying we're going in the right direction there too, down south. Now that's Louisiana State Police, a big department. That's not a small department in the South. That could still be a little different. But I'm looking at it that maybe I'm the eternal optimist, and Bill kind of will tell you that. Like I'm always trying to find the bright spot of things in life.
Right.
But that's how I see it. And at least I hope it's going.
Hey,
Alicia,
Joe, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg, and then
just,
I'm going to
Alicia. Really quick. I'll share that optimism with you after they go to trial and after they get locked up. Right now, to me, it's just a story to make us calm down. And I say us, I'm talking about people of color.
Yes.
So when they get to the trial, they go to jail, then I'll share your optimism.
And before everybody goes, we'll talk about the George Floyd trial too. Alicia, give me your take on that.
I think people are looking to find this one thing that's causing all of this, police abuse, police, misconduct. And it's not just this one thing. We know that this country was founded on the ideals of racism and white supremacy. It was founded on it. Everything about it, from the founding fathers on up, the 400 years of slavery, that was then passed on to generations of people who believed a lot of what their parents and grandparents taught them about white supremacy and, blacks and people of color being inferior. That doesn't go away. So part of the problem is that you have a lot of the people who are very hardcore racists. They stand out. We know who those are. They tell on themselves. the ones who have those racially biased worldviews, those are the ones we need to get to, because many of those people, they're not aware that some of the things they've been taught are racially biased. Some of them actually believe that when they make, these racially biased comments to you or microaggressions, they don't see anything wrong with that. If someone asks me, and I've had this several times, a white person say, "Oh, so how do you celebrate Cinco de Mayo?" And I'm like, "I'm not Mexican." Or they'll ask me, it's not, they don't see it as being kind of racially insensitive, or, it's a microaggression, but it is microaggression. They're not even aware of it. So now you multiply that by a lot of other worldviews they have that they're not aware, and trying to get them to understand why that would be offensive to someone, that's a challenge. People, they don't want people to think of them as racist. So that's where they get defensive, and because nobody wants to be accused of or being considered racist, so they get on the defense instead of trying to, let me think about this. Was that a little bit, a microaggression? Yeah, I mean, not everyone who speaks Spanish is from Mexico. So, it's those kinds of things. Now, we're talking about it on a grander scale when we start diving into, police brutality and use of force. But those little things lend way to the bigger issues. And those of us who identify it and kind of dismiss it or just blow it off, we're just as guilty, because we need to stop it. I know a lot of people think that I am very assertive or aggressive, but it's because I just want to call it out. It doesn't mean that I hate you. It doesn't mean that, I'm not going to speak to you. I've had to do this, at all the jobs I've had, where I say, can I speak to you for a minute? I really didn't appreciate that, and people initially get offended, but if you kind of talk to them, chances are they're not going to do it again. And they may be more aware of it. In the police department, again, there are too many times superiors turn a blind eye to the comments that are, the microaggressions, the sometimes outright kind of racist statements. They just turn a blind eye to it, and unless that stops, I think people, when you're not called out on it, it kind of emboldens them. Emboldens them to think it's okay. So
I appreciate that. Paula, what's your take on it? Did I mute you, or let me see?
They're not called out on it. It kind of emboldens them.
Paula, you got to mute your phone. I
appreciate that.
Mute your phone, Paula.
Paula, what's your take on it? Did I mute you?
I'm gonna mute you. Paula, mute your phone. I'm gonna go to you, Courtney. What's your take on it? And then I'll go to Chuck. And then we got to come back to you, Paula. You got to mute your phone. All right, Courtney.
All right, guys. I think this adversarial relationship we have with the police is not going anywhere. As Kevin said, he hopes it gets better, and he's an optimist with that. But I don't see that happening, because, as Gina pointed out, the systemic racism, that's prevalent here in the United States. I mean, I look at, when I was in the Navy, I traveled quite a bit, and I would observe the cops in other countries. I mean, they have whistles, and even with more ethnically diverse cultures and stuff, where you have who live in Europe and stuff, the police still have whistles. They don't have all the combat gear that we have here in the United States. So, culturally, I think it's a little bit different over there than it is here, and even more so how the police interact with people. It's more it's more adversarial relationship, and I don't see that going anywhere soon. But I do hope for improvement, and I think training as we said, cultural sensitivity training, and make it be a real thing, not no corporate 10-minute bullshit lecture on culture, because, culture is who we are. And I think that needs to be a real discussion, and it needs to be real training conducted on cultural sensitivity. And I think that would ease up some of the burden going forward.
Let me ask you, Courtney, what would you think if you were on a panel right now and somebody said, Courtney, you talk about diversity, sensitivity training. What would be the first thing that you said? Like hire more people of color, just training added on to the academy, tutelage. What would be something that you think you might add?
Well, you just got to see people as human beings, and not just as a black person about to do something, or that white guy maybe he's in the corporate fraud. I don't know, but you just kind of approach it. I think the stereotypes that quite a few law enforcement have, it manifests in the street, and I think
absolutely
you really just gotta like. I know it's hard. You got to limit the bias.
No, exactly, and maybe that's something we're going to open up, and everybody after Paula and Chuck comment, that's going to be my next question. So everybody, write your notes down and chop it up. What would be things that you think that could help, limit the bias ideology? And so everybody, please hold that conversation. I'm going to go to Paula right now. Paula, what's your take on what we're talking about right now? Then I'm going to finish with Chuck, and then we're going to open it up, and then I'm going to read some of the comments. Go ahead, Paula.
Well, I was thinking on the same lines as Miss Alicia, that systematic racism is so embedded in the fabric of America that a lot of people don't think that is racism. They don't think that, you beating somebody, a police officer, anybody beating a person of color is racist. They think it's like the OK Karate Club, you have generations back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. The first police officer joined the police force of New York City, in 1940 something? But you have generations of officers that were predominantly white on the force, that behavior is like passed down, not probably intentionally, but when you in a home or some type of setting where nobody, like you could be in a classroom and the teacher would say, hey, you niggers, what's going on? And because people are trained, are raised in that environment, they think that there's nothing wrong with using the nigger word. Like it's just going to be a hard piece to try to combat because it's so embedded. We can look at the situation that happened on January 6th. Like when in the summertime when Black Lives Matters went to Capitol Hill, it was loaded with cops. They took the officers on January 6th. They had a discrepancy of 3 hours of who will make the decision to send in the National Guard. If that's not disgusting, it's just so embedded. It's just, we got a long way to go. What I would like to see is that we go back to Oklahoma, where the Black Wall Street was in existence, and they give us our own land and our own territory, and we go back and we have our own police, our own banking, our own stores, our own communities, and then maybe something can be done about, then.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to say this right now, everybody out there that's listening, and then I'm coming to Chuck, and then we're going to open it up to the question that I asked. That everybody out there, if you like what you're hearing, share it. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it. Cynthia, I'm going to read your comments and statements. It's powerful. I appreciate you. I'm going to read the people's comments and statements on Facebook Live. I want Chuck to comment first, but then the one thing that I do want to say that I'm going to invite each and every one of you back to have your own segment with Kevin and myself, so you can have your own time to speak, or maybe I might invite one or two of you, so that way we can have it, because I appreciate you all putting your time and your effort in it and being able to or try to articulate yourself in the time that we allot you. But I know you have so much more, and that's why I all invited you here, because I know you have so much to say. With that being said, we're going to skip that schedule. I'm going to invite you all back. So for the months coming, each and every one of you will have your own time with Kevin and I, so we can articulate and converse. Because I know it's going to be hot and heavy.
That's gonna
So
be hot.
we're
Y'all
gonna
supposed
be
to do
we're
that.
gonna be all the way. We're gonna go all the way to June. So everybody here, I'm asking you to come back, and we will set in the green room or another room. We will sit here, and I will give you your own day with Kevin and myself, so we can talk. But Chuck, give me your thought process on what we're talking about, brother, before we open it up to the panel.
I mean, I applaud Alicia's comments. I mean, it's historically, right? We're talking about from slavery. You have certain mindsets, right? You try to break the modality of that mindset, but then as centuries have gone on, there's been other things that have added to it, right? You got the KKK. Yes, the KKK at some point, now they infiltrate police departments, right? Talking about the South, right? And then what their ideology was directly related to how they viewed blacks, people of color. And then they migrated, right? They didn't stay in the South, right? They moved all over the place. So the overall ideology associated with people of color being less than has been something that's been pervasive through history. So now what happens is they now move to certain communities, they make their own communities. And then what I have to say, what adds to it is the media, because news coverage generally, what happens is when they show us, they generally show us at our worst. They don't generally show people of color generally doing something that's, unless it's a certain stage, but for the most part, you know, they always interview that one particular black person that might have saw a shooting. Now there's a million of other black people you could have interviewed, but you get the black brother that's on the corner that unfortunately may look a little disheveled, right? He doesn't look well. He doesn't speak very well. You're trying to tell me there were no other brothers on the street that you could have actually spoken to or interviewed. So now that feeds into whatever this, excuse the expression, oh, look, they just niggas. It feeds into that. And then now you have them living in different regions. And then when you bring them into, let's say, the city, and now you want to make them police officers, between the media, what they know historically, being isolated and contained in their own communities, having their own doctors, their own, you know, their own money. They don't come out of, let's say, like, it's like Huckleberry Finn, right? They don't leave their neighborhoods. They stay there. They populate and they stay in their neighborhoods. And now you bring them into an urban environment, and all of these biases and prejudices they've seen over the years, historically, what they've seen on TV. Now you try to break that, right? Psychologically, you try to break that within a 6-month period and put them in a uniform and hope to God that it goes away. It's not that easy. It's far from that easy. So it's like she said very clearly, it's just not one thing. There's a modality of different components that come into this. And unless we start from the root, where honestly speaking, it has to start at the house, the home, the parents. They have to instill something in their children, tell them that every human being, regardless of their color, you're the same, you're equal. Until that, we're never going to be able to break the systemic racism. It has to start at the house, from the belly, from the womb, it has to start. And that's just my personal feeling.
Bill, your mic.
You muted, Bill.
Oh yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. What you just said, I think by the head nods, I think a lot of people agreed with you. Kevin, I'll let you comment, rebuttal or comment real quick before I read some of the comments that are going in, and then we're going to go to that question that I asked, and I'll pick somebody to go first, and maybe I'll start with Alicia and then Greg or Courtney. So go ahead, Kevin, if you have anything.
I'll give you a quick little background of myself. Right, I grew up in New York City, Queens kid, public school. You know, lower middle class neighborhood, Woodhaven, Queens is what it was, the name. I went to public school. My elementary school, not a brown kid in it, right? Because back in the 80s, New York City, I think, was far more segregated, far more than today. I think today we're a little more open and mixed.
It's called gentrification.
Family. My family, my grandparents are immigrants. And actually, most white people I know fall into that category where their grandparents are immigrants. So we're not, here for 100 years. My ancestors weren't here 100 years ago. Didn't grow up that way. I never heard the N-word in my house. Like, that was not. So when you say it comes from the womb, 100%. Did not hear it. But with all that said, and Bill, we talked about it last week, the NYPD did me an injustice in the academy. They sent me to the 2-8, which was great in the end. but I wasn't ready for the 2-8, right? There
Right.
was no,
Cultural training, yeah.
awareness, interaction. There was nothing, right? And we're all different people. And every neighborhood you grow up in is going to change who you are, right? Color is part of it. Where you grow up is part of it, and finances is part of it. But we grow up where we grow up, and you're told to go work somewhere else where you don't know. And back then, we're more in a bubble, right? There was no social media. We didn't watch news on things. I didn't. It was the 5 o'clock news, and I was, a kid who watched the 5 o'clock news. I was out playing like every other kid at our age, right? We were out.
Yeah.
All right. From sunrise to sunset, you were out of the house. So, we have not done that part right. We have not, we're assigning cops to neighborhoods. We're not giving them the tools. We're not teaching them. We're not educating them. We're not, diversifying them. And we're expecting them to learn it on the job from others.
You know what's so funny? That it's a beautiful thing, and get rid of the question that I was going to ask. That let's answer that question. What do we need to give the people, the new officers coming on this job, white, black, Spanish, whomever, the tools to be better officers? Because that's really the question here. Chuck hit on it, Alicia hit on it, Gina, Greg, all of you have hit on it. What do we need to give the new people? And is it a lot of times can we say it's just New York City? No, not at all, because a lot of times what we're seeing is other cities that are having problems because New York is a blue state. But what is it that we need to do that's going to help make the police department better for people of color? What are we going to do to help white officers be more conscious and sensitive to people of color? What's going to do for our Latin officers to recognize that they're people of color, and not our black officers to sell the hell out. I just want to read some comments, Chuck. I see you that, but Gina, I'm gonna go to you, Gina, Chuck, Alicia, Courtney, and then I'll Greg, and then Kevin. But I just want to read some comments that people have said and chimed in. And I may be going back in the past, but I just want to say that Mark said, you know what, policing has taken so hard hits from some officers who really don't respect the badge or the community. It's a culture thing. It needs to be uprooted. The question is, can our communities around the country gain the power to do so? Sharon, what's up, Sharon? How are you? She said, Gina is correct. It has been shown how the whole Jim Crow laws were eventually carried out by the police, which started with the South. This is how the culture that we are speaking of was developed. Mark said again, he said the word is infiltrate. The military has trained some of the worst white supremacists ever. Once leaving the military and being trained in how to kill another human being, uh, some get recruited by police departments, mainly LAPD and NYPD. Facts. January 6th, Mark said, show the world what white supremacy is all about. Sharon Saunders said, people think a racist is only when they use the N-word. That is so powerful. Sharon Klesko said, exactly, Jim Crow laws were enforced by police. Gina is correct. Policing started out with many officers in the South who were a part of the KKK. This is how the culture was developed. We have I had to show the, we have to, we have to, the KKK here in New York State as well. Racism is part of the country and would impact the systems. Cheryl White said, the racism is deep rooted. When you've been that way for such a long time, it becomes second nature. The becomes so obvious to it. Cheryl says, I agree with Chuck. Something that I say repeatedly. Sharon Saunders, let's see. Sharon Saunders says, let me go back to Sharon Saunders, where she, it just jumped. White supremacy and racism in America is not the problem of black or brown people. It angers me that someone has to be taught not to be a racist. That's crazy. Shout out to my man John Mills. Johns was going to be in with us tonight, but he was feeling a little under the weather. He said, first off, mixed partners, stop putting white, black, and Hispanic officers only with one another. Colin Clark, we need to go back to if you want to work in the NYPD, you must live in the 5 boroughs. I'll ask that a question to you, some of you
I was
guys.
about to say.
Elizabeth said, okay, let me read Cynthia's comments on YouTube. Shout out to our YouTube people chiming in. Much respect to you all. Cynthia has definitely been with us, and Dr. Let's see. Oh, we got some good comments coming in here. We're gonna rock it out. Hold on, everybody. Let's see. Pamela Moore said, and there is this just in regarding to the Georgia spa shooting. Buffalo's article. The cop who said the spa shooting had a bad day previously posted a racist shirt blaming China for the pandemic. Yeah, it happens all the time. Cynthia said preventive medicine is key. Like Kevin mentioned, follow the jacket for once they started their career. Cynthia also said, be mindful where active good cops get complaints, but there are those who are overlooked because of their skin color. Absolutely. Like Chuck mentioned also too, they tried to shun me from the psychological too. But Dr. Miller said Chuck was a spiritual talk with William Means. Maybe that was so far back that I couldn't shouldn't have read that. But this is Real Talk Chronicles, and this is what I do. I'm going to try to get everybody their shine. Pamela said someone on the panel said that they were interested in knowing what are some resources we can take to combat the issue. I am a member of the New York City campaign for the Elected Civilian Review Board. Pamela said the Elected Civilian Review Board is an overhaul of the existing CCRB. It is elected to the community members that can make binding disciplinary decisions versus mere recommendations of discipline. Thank you, Pamela. If you ever feel that you want to be on this show, Pamela, please let us know. Whomever let you know about this, we're more than welcome to have you. That you can give us some insight on certain things. Pamela said community members would serve on the board versus handpicked appointed board members, as in the case right now. Council members, Inez Barron is introducing the bill next Tuesday. Bill, he is mentioning that Louisiana has better internal investigation to address this type of incident. You agree with that, or you disagree with that, Cynthia? Give power to the communities that abuse. Better training officers in the field. Cynthia said, not in my 33 years on the job. Still till today, nobody could do that around me. I respect that, Cynthia. Cynthia said, Chuck and I got on in 87, and the time on the job, they didn't even want women of color to either. I think we all know that Alicia and Chuck, we all know that how they felt back then about women. Cynthia said in the 80s, when getting on the job, the psych doctors would pick from a deck of cards the number to fall a candidate. Years later, in many lawsuits, the truth came out.
Right.
Exactly. A lot of things have happened. So Stephanie said, with all the proposed changes coming to NYPD, do you guys think that things will get better or worse? We're going to hold that question. With everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I love the panel discussion right now. I'm just trying to read it off and just give everybody some insight of what's happening. I wanted to let everybody know that we acknowledge what you are saying and what you're putting out there in the universe. I don't want you to go and feel like what you typed in is unwarranted. And I want to give everybody their shine and let them say what they have to say. I forgot the last question I wanted to ask all of you. So somebody please help me with what it is.
That's okay. I'm gonna chime in.
Go ahead, Gina. Go ahead.
So basically, it was a piggyback off of what Kevin has said, because he was the last one to speak, and what you had said also. I feel as though people who look like me should feel law-abiding citizens should feel like the police department is there to serve and protect them. not to, I shouldn't feel like fearful to go outside, or if I see a cop that, or even if I'm driving, that something very terrible could happen to me. I should not feel, as a parent of a 30-some-year-old male, should feel like, I pray every day. I mean, I prayed harder when he was younger. I still pray now today that he makes it home whenever he steps out. And that's basically on any level. I am not one to bash the police department. I know they have a job to do, and there are criminals definitely out there, and they should be apprehended. So as we're speaking today, something other than, as far as the racial bias that goes on in the department, I feel that there's definitely a disconnect between the department and the community. I agree that the cops should live in there where they work. If they're serving the community, they should serve and live in that same community, because then that will also, they will have something to relate by, and they maybe by chance they may take a different stance on their community where they live. And I just
Gina, hold that thought right there. I just want to
Mhm.
say this, and Alicia, Chuck, Kevin, we all know this. I've been told, for the fact that I'm still a Harlem resident, everybody knows I may have dual residency, but I'm still a Harlem resident. I've heard countless times, why are you still living in the city? Why, Chuck, you're still a city person. You know what I'm saying? Well, the city is this, the city is that. They don't want, Gina, they don't want us to live in the city, because the bottom line is, there was once upon a time they was taught, Alicia and Chuck and Kevin, please correct me if I'm wrong. It was taught, like, don't get involved. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Keep turn like call 911. Don't get involved. Don't get involved. But the bottom line is, when you live in the city, you have no choice to get involved because you care about your community. So the
Exactly.
job has taught us to move on yonder, if I use that word. You know what I'm saying? And I always say this, 5 years, I've said this before, cop land. 5 years, get married, move to cop land, and then come down, because now the psychological aspect of this job is that now you're gonna not so much collar for dollars, but you gotta make a rest for that overtime to pay for that mortgage that you just bought, that house, the expensive house that you really can't afford, but because you're out of your means. You understand what I'm saying, Gina? So the
Hmm.
bottom line is, yeah, if people stayed in the communities that they lived in and they worked in, not per se like I when I came on the job, I lived in the 3-0. Chuck knows that. Chuck lived in the 3-0. You know what I'm saying? We lived around the corner from each other. And I worked in the 2-8. But the bottom line is, I applauded that and I appreciated it. I didn't have the problems that some, and we'll say this, cops that came on this job that were punks. Alicia knows what I'm saying. Kevin knows what I'm saying. Chuck knows what I'm saying. And we all know this. We all know that cop that came on this job and that was a punk.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, now all of a sudden he wants to stick his chest out and he's that dude or she's that chick.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is, listen, I was that dude before I became on the job. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
Like
right.
my street credits handled my PD credits. You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't want that bill, you didn't want that B fly
No.
more or less than you want that bill to Joe Cop. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm a different animal. But the bottom line is, I wasn't a punk. And I say all that to say that it made my job easier. So when I did run across people that knew me in the community, it was a de-escalating appearance. Not even that, yo, I might still have to lock your ass up, but it was still de-escalating the fact that, oh shit, what's up, Bill? Yeah, what happened? Yeah, I punched my girl in the face. Yo, you got to go to jail. Oh shit, why? Yo, you punched your girl in the face. Okay, I don't want no problems with you. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Alicia, comment. Go ahead, Alicia. Give me some insight on that.
I was going to say, even when I became a teacher and then an administrator, and I had to deal with disciplining students, one of the issues we faced at the school, at the high school level, was that there was a disproportionate number of students of color getting referrals from teachers, which then led to me having to discipline those students more so than their white counterparts. And it was by a lot. And it wasn't because the Black kids and the brown kids were behaving worse than the white kids, is that it was being reported at a higher rate for those Black and brown students. And it comes down, again, to that cultural competence. Not understanding that how urban, especially urban, but in Black and Hispanic communities, you can't just talk to kids a certain way. And, if you want them to do something, there's a certain way to approach them where you are still in control, but you're being respectful, and you are and it comes with an understanding of the urban culture, of the Black culture, of the Hispanic culture. And I think that that's the same in the police department. There needs to be this cultural competence training that goes on, and we have to be explicit about teaching what is unacceptable, what constitutes racism, because like Shonda, I think is the one that said, using the N-word is not the only way you can be a racist. There are other ways, and just because you show a racial bias, which we all have, some biases, and we have, we stereotype sometimes, it doesn't mean you're a racist. But there's a fine line there, and I think that a lot of people don't understand when they are being racist or racially, insensitive or biased. And I think we can't just say, don't be racist. We have to explicitly teach, with concrete examples of what that looks like, what it sounds like to different people. And it includes body language and what we say out loud, what we say and what we don't say, and how we treat people. So awesome. I just don't think anything's going to change unless we somehow incorporate that into the curriculum and actually hold people accountable. And I don't mean, accountability doesn't always have to be disciplining. It just, it can mean, hey, that's not good. Let's talk about why that wasn't an appropriate response.
Thank you, Alicia. Greg, I'm gonna ask you. You and I, we're mentors, and we speak to kids every Saturday. You know what I'm saying? For years. Piggyback on what you heard Alicia say. You agree, disagree? Because I co-sign it, but give me your thought process on what you heard Alicia say, please.
In terms of teaching or deprogramming,
yes,
racism, and on many different levels, you're right. It's not. I guess the theme I think I've heard from everybody in one form or another is there's not one magic bullet that's going to cure everything.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you're going to have to approach it, and you have to keep the momentum. And it's not going to go overnight. And overnight in these terms, it's not going to happen. It may not happen in 10 years. It may not happen in 15 years. It may not happen in 25 years. But if you're consistent, you stay with it, it will happen. And you also need help. It's just not Black community, Hispanic community. We need the white community. We need them to help us with this. So approaching it from many different fronts, whether it's through education, training, better police, enforcement, or better police officers in the schools, in the streets, and also in our own behaviors. And I'm going to say it. How much I look. This is a little off tangent, but I'm making a point. So just stay with me.
No, because it's real talk, and you saying what you feel. So go ahead, brother. Mm-hmm.
I sit here and watch a movie. They will beep out the word bitch. They'll beep out the word shit, but you'll hit nigger 15 times, and that's not beeped out.
Right.
Sometimes it's the smallest little things that can get you so much progress. And if we teach ourselves, and going to what you said, what we do with the kids, we try to teach them that you are much better than what you're promoting sometimes. And you have to get deep into that person's mind, body, and I mean, not body, but mind and soul to help them understand what's important and what you should be doing. So to bring it together, it's just not one thing, but everybody will play a part. So I might not play a part in helping police officers to understand, sensitivity training, but my part may be teaching someone who's 11 years old, if you do things this way, if you educate yourself, if you show self-respect, if you respect your black brothers and sisters, respect everybody, that's my part. So if all 6 of us on the screen play one part, we're going to get one step closer. So that's like a big umbrella way of saying it's just not one way to do it. But whatever your part is, do that, do it to the best of your ability, make some change, and that will trickle. It's like the butterfly effect in a good way.
I totally agree. Chuck, chime in, brother. And first and foremost, let me tell you something, everybody. Right now, I am going on the record. I'm asking you all to come back on your own day. So, Chuck, if you can come back next Wednesday, Gina, the following next Wednesday, Alicia, the following next Wednesday, Greg, the following next Wednesday. I'm asking you right now to look at your calendars and put that out there. I'm putting it on the universe, because the bottom line is you all have just contributed so much energy and positive, affirmation to what Kevin and I are bringing. I see you, Cynthia. Cynthia. I might have to ask you to come on too. And Stephanie, I see you. And Colin, I'm going to read your comments. But like I said, Chuck, if you can, look at your schedule and see if you can come on next Wednesday. That way it'll just be you, Kevin, and myself. And then, like I said, Gina, Alicia. And so look at the following Wednesdays. Mark your calendars. I'm asking you all right now to mark your calendars. And whatever the topic comes, it may shift from what's happening in the world, but I'm asking you all to mark your calendars right now and put yourself in that calendar. So Chuck, I'm asking you for next Wednesday. Gina, I'm asking you for the following Wednesday after Chuck. Alicia, I'm asking you for the following Wednesday after Gina. And Greg, I'm asking you for the following Wednesday after that. So I'm asking you all right now to mark yourselves and let me know what those dates are. And if you can do it, if not, then we'll just move the needle for Kevin and I. But I want you all to have your own time to converse and tell the world what you feel and how you feel about any topics, because as Kevin can tell you, we talk about things that are happening constantly. We may delve back into the past, but we are current event conversation. So if something happens, like I said, we haven't even addressed January 6th and things like that. And I only have you for 12 more minutes, 13 more minutes, because I promise not to go after 2 hours. Kevin, that's what I've done, the new thing. But
that's only happened once. Just
yes,
all,
exactly.
Right? It's
exactly.
new. We did it last week, and we'll see.
But
I've
been trying to hold that. You know what I'm saying? But Chuck, I want you to comment. But like I said, I'm asking you all to book yourselves, and it's important to me that I have so many articulate individuals come out and give so insightful things. And I think you all deserve to have a time when you can have this kind of dialogue, like Gina, Alicia, Greg, Chuck. Like, I love everything that you're saying. Shout out to Paula. I know my cousin wanted to chime in, but she was having difficulties. But a beautiful thing. So Chuck, give me some insight in what you were saying, brother, or what you wanted to say, and then we'll open it up real quick. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Well, just some quick things. When I came through in '87, how they actually, let's say, put more fuel to the fire in terms of exacerbating the racism within the police department, was they had 3 different types of disciplines, right? It was police science, it was law, and then it was social science. And in the curriculum of social science, they had the various neighborhoods that they told every recruit had to visit, and they had to actually give a report. But when they got to the part about Harlem, they said very clearly that this particular neighborhood is extremely violent, is proliferated with drugs, guns, and if you visit there, you have to be there at least in a large group. Do not go there by yourself. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a perfect example of that.
Born and raised in Harlem.
Worldview.
You know how you get star cards, you get sent to the 6th floor. I got sent to the 6th floor. Once I read that, I flipped. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, hold on. I live in Harlem. Who the hell are you to tell me that my neighborhood? And I was going off. And was, you got to go up to the 6th floor, the whole 9 yards. But once again, even within the curriculum, you see what I'm saying? You're feeding the fuel of racism by telling them that this particular community, you got to be careful. You can't go there by yourself. You have to go there with 4 or 5 people. So my issue was, I actually brought in, sometimes that didn't change until this deputy commissioner of training, named Elsie Scott, came in. I brought it to her attention. She looked at the curriculum and says, how long has this been written like this? I said, way before I came on, because that seems to be, they just run it off in freaking Xerox machine and just give it out to all the recruits.
Chuck, and I bet, prior to her, no one thought anything of it.
No one thought anything of it. She said, didn't anybody question us? I said, I did. I got thrown out of my classroom a great deal of times, but no one else questioned it. So thank God to her, that particular section of the curriculum, as well as everything else, she went through with a fine-tooth comb and turned it upside down because she was a sister, a woman of color. But the thing I thought to her, and I had actually said, the same way when you have someone who's about to get promoted to sergeant, they generally have to put them in the precinct first, and they have to ride around in that precinct, right? And then they have to get acclimated to the issues associated with the desk and the community itself. My overall, the way I would think it really would break down barriers amongst individuals who's never had this exposure is that you should take a cop who lives in Long Island or whatever, either put him with someone of color in that urban environment while he's in training. In other words, his partner should be an Hispanic or a Black. Let him come to his neighborhood and let him now write a paper of some sort about his overall experience and being in that other person's environment. And he's got to be in that environment the whole 6 months throughout the whole academy. Him and that white boy or that is Hispanic, they have to be partners and they have to stay together and go to each other's community throughout the whole 6 months. So that way it gives him some understanding of having to deal with people of color. Or what I always say, what always gets to me is when you're around little kids, put the cops in a school setting where for 6 months, they got to be around kids that are opposite them, because kids are very frank, right? They're very open. And if anything doesn't open a man's heart as a child, I don't care what anybody, I don't care how much hatred you may have, but you see a kid and you're around a child around the clock, at least 6 months, believe me, it will make you view everything and every human being differently. So that has always been my recommendation, as much as they go in so far as ensuring that supervisors get all this training and know how to supervise people. You got to start from when they're babies. And you're talking about some of these kids coming from Long Island, like I said, or from Westchester, they've never seen another Black face. Now in some of these boroughs, based on gentrification, okay, now we're mixing and matching, right? Gays, Blacks, Hispanics. But prior to that, we all been separated. So let's try to use some basic tools, right? Just put these guys from Long Island or Westchester, or if they never had exposure, put them with a kid or have them for 6 months to have a partner of the opposite color of them, opposite gender, whatever their issues are. And then when they go through that 6 months, that's when their psychological should end. Not to get on the job. Their psychological should not end until they go through those 6 months and they get reevaluated at the end of the 6 months after being exposed to an urban environment. I mean, that's just always been my recommendation, but it's all
and that's awesome. I love that. Kevin, Greg, Gina, and Alicia, we got 6 minutes to go. So, like, Kev, give me your insight. Greg, Gina, and then Alicia, and then we'll close out. I mean, we can go over 2 minutes, 2 hours. I just try to stay in the 2 hour love, because I don't want nobody to get mad at me, the significant others. So go ahead, Kev, give me some insight, and then I'm going to read some of the comments. Go ahead.
All right, we're not even going to get to the other video tonight, but we'll do it next week.
We'll do it next week. Chuck, you're up next if you can come back next week.
So Greg, hit it where like any problem, it's not one prong solution, it's multiple. So I'm with you on this. We got to start early, right? We talked a little bit about the psychological. Maybe we need to do. Years ago, the FBI did an assessment of serial killers, right? They went into prisons, they sat there, they interviewed them, they learned more, they understood mentality so they can investigate it. Maybe we need a thing done, you know, like after these cops in Louisiana go to jail, after the guy in Minneapolis goes to jail, to start interviewing these guys on who they were. I don't know if we really understand who they are inside their head, you know, because if we understand that, maybe we can then weed out more.
Well,
but we need, you know, yeah. And can we weed out more? We need to train more. We don't have good diversity training in the academy. I explained to you my own story, right? Like I was put in Harlem and, you know, said, have at it. I got lucky. I had good cops to work with. If I was sent there to work with bad cops, I can't tell you what my career would have been. Can't. It could be completely different. You know, Chuck goes into it. Everybody else is going to. The training officer, your first interaction as a cop, forget about the academy, your first interaction as a cop on the street, that 6 months, that year, your training officer is the most important person in the police department by far. Nothing will mold a young cop like that training officer. And, you know, they're not given that spot of importance in the police department. They're not considered what they should be, right? The you know, the 2.8 training officer, the 3.2, the 105, I don't care where it is. The training officer should be the most prestigious spot the CO has. The borough commander should have to sign off on training officers. The training officers should be reviewed. You want good cops. You want cops who understand community, who have humanity and humility, but also willing to get their hands dirty, right? Like we got to also understand sometimes we got to be cops and we're going to get our hands dirty. The training cops, I've seen places where training cops were awful. And when you have an awful training cop, you have awful training kids. You know, that goes to the womb. The story, Chuck, before the womb, that's the womb of the police department, that first interaction. So those people need to be the creme de la creme of the department. And that's something that we need to change and push for change.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Paula, I see you here. I know you've been in and out. I'm going to let you comment real quick. We're just trying to give everybody a little 1 minute shot to say what they got to say, but we're going to invite you to come back so you can have your own time and you can converse and say what you want to say with us. So we got Chuck. I forgot how I put the schedule up. Somebody help me. Chuck, Gina, Alicia, Greg, somebody. But I know Chuck is up to bat. Paula, give us your insight and give me a 1 minute synopsis of what you feel and how you feeling. Go ahead.
You know, I was trying to find this I don't know what it was. It was sort of like a meme on Facebook earlier that this morning I read. It said that a police department has 1,300 cops, and I think it was like 250 good cops. How many? It was in the reference to saying that when the good cops let the bad cops continue to be bad, all cops are bad. Something in that reference. So it has to start. Like I know I work for the state. You know, I had a very hard job. You know, sometimes you just do things differently. Like pretty much like the situation with Kirk Franklin got caught cursing the sun out, and the sun only exposed that part. But you know, I've seen people like, you know, not abuse, but you know, put one of the students in line that was aggressive towards them. You know, that's not acceptable. However, it wasn't abusive. So it's different connotations for different things. But when two officers approach a person of color and one of the officers become aggressive and that other officers don't say anything, that's why you have a blue wall. That's why it's called a blue wall, because that type of stuff is you just don't do. Because if you were to say something, then you're outcast. And that's a lot that has to do with that portion of all the different elements of combating the problem.
Listen, we're gonna go over 2 hours right now because I'm gonna ask Kevin to comment on that and Alicia and Chuck to comment on that statement. Go ahead, and then Greg and Gina. Kev, what do you think about what she just said? Do you agree or disagree? What's your comment?
I have to apologize, and I'm trying to rehear it on my phone. My internet was shoddy, and I missed most of what she said.
All right,
so I know the phone's delayed, and I'm trying to catch up.
Alicia, did you hear what she said?
I did.
You agree or disagree?
You see it on social media. If you are someone that stands up against, you know, the police brutality on television, all of these different racial issues that are happening between the community and the police department, your fellow, officers, so people you worked with in the past, many of them label you a traitor. You're not a real cop. You're, against blue. How dare you? You're a disgrace. All of those negative connotations come with you speaking up against something that's clearly wrong. And if it's happening when you're not even on the job, imagine what happens to the guys that speak up, that are still in uniform every day.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to tell Chuck, I really agree with what you said. I think the police department has to do a better job of rooting out and dispelling all of that implicit bias, because it does feed into what white officers think before even getting to a community, what they think about the people in the community, and they're anticipating a negative interaction before any interaction happens, and that's usually associated with people of color. So I appreciate that. And finally, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. The last couple of years, especially this last year, with everything that was happening, people were angry, frustrated, hurt, all of these emotions, and there was no real outlet other than, like for me, speaking to my husband about it. So having this, environment where is controlled, constructive, and we're all being respectful about, voicing our opinions, I greatly appreciate it. So I wanted to say that to all of you.
Thank you.
All of you.
And Leisha, get that date for me, because when we go into the green room, like Kevin says, I'm going to ask you all for your dates or when you're going to be on the show. So Chuck, what do you think about what Alicia said and what Kevin was saying?
Well, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I was one of those guys, like you said, Bill. They knew not to say certain shit around me. You know what I mean? They just knew. I wasn't a punk. I was a kid from the streets. I came into a precinct. I had a couple of white cats, unfortunately, that tested me. I told them, look, we could take it downstairs into the locker room. We could just get our hands up. We can handle this. And they thought I was crazy. But I was like, yo, I'm not some punk. So if, in fact, you're going to behave and act the way around me, it's not going to be tolerated. So if there was a culture, which there were, they knew I wasn't a part of it. They would stay away from me. They wouldn't make those references. They wouldn't make any statements. And if they did make it around me, I would say, excuse me, what did you say? And they could see in my eyes, like, I don't care. I'm going to punch you in the mouth. We can go downstairs. We can go around the corner like men, and we can handle this. So I never really had a problem directly related to that. But I do know that there were certain people in my precinct that when I worked with, unfortunately, they looked at them as being weak. So they did say something. Yeah, you found, someone's locker in the shower. You know what I mean? They would put their names on walls, call them a rat or something like that. They would smear them all over the bathroom, all type kind of nonsense. But like I said, me personally, I wasn't tolerating it. They knew I was one of those guys that you really couldn't mess with. And if they did, I would probably put my foot up their ass, a Sue's expression.
No. And that expression needs to be put out there. And Kevin, it's so funny that shout out to my old partner, Al Frison. We're both retired now. And in lieu of what you're saying, Chuck, Branzetti, you're a guy that you graduated with. Frison and I had to step to a few of those individuals and ask them, because in our bathroom that only law enforcement uses, only law enforcement uses, they put up on the wall, Forster and Frison, perps with badges. And we had to step to certain individuals, and alluding to what Chuck was saying, we asked them, yo, if you put that, let us know now so we can punch you in your face. Because the bottom line is, and this is your graduating class, Kev. You know what I'm saying? Like, we stepped to them, and we had to have people like senior officers come to us and be like, yo, what are y'all cats doing? Like, y'all can't just be threatening cats. Y'all on probation. But the bottom line is, like, we was a different cloth. Like, you're not going to talk to us and say what you're going to say, or try to say what you're going to say, and think that you're not going to get touched. You understand what I'm saying? And in lieu of that, I've spent my whole career touching people, and I think that's what's been my trademark. You know what I'm saying? But I say that to say that it's sad that like what Chuck is saying is true, and like Alicia had to, as a female to speak out and to be a woman of color, just because she's fair skinned, they assume that she's going to get along, go along. So with that being said, and all that being said, Gina and Greg, I want to ask you what your take on is what you're hearing that officers here from Kevin, Alicia, Chuck, and myself speak out. Like, how does that make you feel that there are individuals that do speak out and speak up for what the things are saying? So go ahead, Gina, and then I'll go to you, Greg. Go, Gina.
Okay. So first of all, Chuck, you're in my head because as far as the training, I was thinking the same thing was about to speak on the same exact thing that you said. So I thank you for voicing that. As far as what Alicia has conveyed, she's dead on. She looks at it from a different point of view. Also from being a female officer. And Kevin, with sharing his experience, I appreciate you being realistic and being real about your experience because that is the real deal. That's what I think a lot of the officers are faced with, just being thrown out there in the fire after they do training and they're out there in these communities and they know nothing about the culture, the community, the people that they're policing. So, or serving to protect. I won't say policing because we're not all criminals. And to the point where lost my train of thought. I am going to thank you.
That's all right.
I'm going to thank you for having me on. I know it was last minute, but thank you for bringing me on. I really appreciate it, being on this panel and hearing from everyone and what they have to say. And I did write down notes, and I don't know what I did on now.
Well, save your notes, but just what I want you to do, Gina, is when we go into the green room, tell me the date that you're going to be on. Remember, I put you all on the schedule because right now I'm putting it out there in the universe because all of you will be the guest hosts with Kevin and I on that date, and I want you all to, and that's my appreciation to give you all some kind of insight and be able to articulate yourselves. And we don't know what's going to happen between now and the dates that are coming up. Also, too, that's for you too, Paula. But you know what's so funny? Because what's happening is a lot of things are coming up that we're like, oh my God, like this is happening. Like, and Kevin and I are behind the scenes all the time, talking and conversing with each other about, did you see this? Did you see that? What about that? What did you think about this? You know what I'm saying? So we're trying to give you the best information we can give you, and that's the Real Talk Chronicles way. So I appreciate that. So Gina, just lock in your date. Greg, give me some insight right now. What's your thought process, brother?
Well, I'll defer. Gina, did you have?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and Pamela Moreau, she is. I invited her into this forum, so that's my person. So she came.
Shout out to Pamela. Pamela, you can come on too. Listen, let me tell you something about Real Talk Chronicles, and Chuck can contest to this. We just add. It's like gremlins. We just, once you put water on us, we just multiply. So the beautiful thing about this is that this is people giving their personal and professional feelings on like that. Kevin and I, and Chuck, Alicia, and I'm saying this from a law enforcement standpoint, we did the job, and we can only give you what we've experienced and learned and what we know. So thank for everybody that is listening. If you don't like what we're saying, that's on you. This forum is open to you. This forum is open to you to come to be a part of it, because the bottom line is Bill Foster. Everybody knows I ain't running. I ain't running. I don't. Right now, I got an arthritic knee. I'm not going nowhere. Listen, and I'm still nice with him. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going nowhere with this. So the bottom line is, and my body of work, just like Kevin's body of work, Chuck's body of work, Alicia's body of work, speaks for itself. So I ask all people, this is not anything derogatory for law enforcement, for all my ghost watchers. Listen, I don't disrespect law enforcement. I disrespect the people that disrespected law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? I say that with all love and due respect. I've worked with beautiful law enforcement officers from all ethnic backgrounds, white, black, Hispanic, and I've worked with some bad law enforcement officers. But I'm just saying all that to say that, listen, this is not a forum to disrespect blue. This is a forum to educate everybody, everybody. And if you're not a part of that, then this is not the forum that you need to listen to. You need to go to some place where you can just talk about Blue Lives Matter and disrespect Black Lives Matter. Because this ain't the forum right here. This podcast is all about educating and elevating, right? That's what it is. If you're not about that, then go ahead, step off. And if you got something to say, then holler at your boy. You know, my phone and my inbox is always open. It's not blocked for no one. You know what I'm saying?
They don't want that, Bill. They don't want that.
They don't want that smoke. But I say that, you know what I'm saying? I say that
you got soldiers.
Yeah, but I say that because you know the masses, Gina, will say that I'm anti-blue or I'm disrespecting this and I'm disrespecting that. All I'm trying to do is educate and elevate. If you're not with that, then this is not the forum or the podcast that you want to listen to. So I respect everybody and I want everybody to understand that. And sometimes you have to reiterate your feelings and make sure people understand and respect that. So that's why I said all of you are welcome back and at your own time to give your own conversation with us, with Kevin and I. And Kevin, I want to say this, I appreciate you because the bottom line is you have stepped up from the day one when I asked you to be a part of this. You know, sometimes the shit you say I don't agree with. I love you. and I put it out there in the universe. I don't agree with. And you may not agree with me, but we respect each other's opinion. And we have no problems conversing on an intellectual conversation. We talk politics from 45 to the 46 to law enforcement. And you and I, we go back and forth. But the bottom line is you're open to dialogue. And that's what makes the world a better place. And I say that to anybody. If you're not having a dialogue that makes the world a better place, then the person out there is useless to you. You understand what I'm saying? And either you agree with me or disagree. I really don't care. This is my podcast, so I'll say what I want to say. You know what I'm saying? The bottom line is, I do. I know. My wife is like, oh my God, like, what is wrong with this dude? You know what I'm saying? But I mean,
this is what happens when Bill goes over the 2-hour mark. He starts to get a little punch drunk.
But
that's right, Kevin. This is what happens.
But I'm just saying that because the bottom line is we're trying to make change. We're trying to make the world a better place. And if you're not a part of that band, then this is what happens. You know, this is how you get solo artists. You understand what I'm saying?
We understand what you're
Okay.
saying.
yo. I mean, I don't know. So Chuck, we want you on next week. I forgot how we put the schedule together. Please put the schedule together. Kevin, give us some love. Wait a minute. I just want to read some people's comments before we get out of here. I'm sorry. Let me get my glasses on. And I know we went over the 2-hour mark, but I just had to read these comments. My man Platinum Flow, what's up, family? He said, Bill, you and your guests are so powerful that you guys need a network show. I agree with you. Because the issues that you are discussing are on point and exactly like the title of your show, Real Talk. Much love and always, much love always. Powerful dialogue like is needed to resolve the problems that we're encountering today. Shout out to my man, my family, Platinum Flow. John Mills, he said that what he was talking about, mixed partners. That's something I think that Chuck, you here said. Alonzo Moreland, my dude, my college brother, basketball partner, former Baltimore PD. He said, yo, Bill, culture was everything in policing. It's never about training, especially in large cities and towns with police academics. Culture and being immersed in the culture is where the issues are. We're going to talk about that. Mark, he said, Bill, great panel. Everyone brought something to say. Definitely bring that back. Alonzo said, truth doesn't know a position. It only knows right and wrong. And if you're on the wrong side of the truth, then you're wrong, regardless of what position you take a color exactly. House is in the building. Shout out to the former 2A House. Alonzo, we're gonna bring you in. In house, we're gonna bring you in. Cynthia, let me get some. I'm gonna give you some love. Dr. Wilness, he said, each officer must be encouraged to talk among themselves. Hold on, I'm just trying to read people's comments before we get out of here. What we're gonna do is get some positive affirmation. It's almost 9:30. My wife is trying to get me out of here. Cynthia said, like I said, extensive culture diversity on the communities your city polices. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate you. We're gonna get you on the show. Okay, she's talking. So what I'm gonna say, yeah, that's what I think about your own podcast. Your wife talks about you too. You know, she gets your ass. So
it may
Paula,
be your show. She's taking over.
Exactly. So this is where I'm gonna work this hourglass. Paula, give us some positive affirmation before you get out of here. Chuck, Gina, Alicia, Greg, and then Kevin will finish out, and then I'll chime out. So Paula, give us some positive love. You got a minute. Go say something good, some love, share some love. Go ahead.
Well, I'm excited to share my thoughts and ideas on combating a real serious problem in the world today. I really appreciate all your comments and everything. And just remember, teamwork make the dream works. Have a good night.
Paula, we're inviting you back. So you got to pick a date when you can come back on a Wednesday with Kevin and I. Greg, give me some love.
Sure. Real quick though, to give my first minute, I just wanted to say that everything that was discussed on the panel was really good information. I think it added value from different perspectives. I definitely think that in order to make this change with policing, with racism, you have to have people on the inside working on the inside, and you have to have people working on the outside. So I applaud all of you for all your attestations, your testaments about how you stood up, you know, when it's not popular and when it's difficult and when you can definitely get scrutinized, and you stood up. That's where it starts, and I really respect that from all of you. And in terms of affirmation, we got to stay consistent, stay positive, stay focused, and we have to make sure we stay consistent. I'm very optimistic that we can make change and that we can make it sooner than later. But I think the way it's going to happen is you have to be consistent. We can't just talk about this today and then next year it just drops off, or next 2 years. It's gonna be a long fight. I mean, if you think about our ancestors, the Montgomery bus boycott, they walked, they carpooled for a year. We got to do something in this day and age. That might be 10 years, but you got to be consistent. You got to work on it. The affirmation is just keep it real. Right. Do the right thing.
Awesome. Chuck, you coming? Chuck, I'm coming on next week. So just give us some positive affirmation. Chuck, you booked for next week. I don't want to hear it. So, Chuck, give us a positive affirmation before we go to Gina and Alicia and Kevin.
I'll keep it real short. I think everyone here on the panel spoke very openly and clear about their thoughts and feelings. I think that all of the different ideas are something that collectively, whether it be community, whether it be police department, whether it just be internally, right? We all have to find some way of connecting as humans, all right? That's where it starts. We have to value humans, not what they are externally, but just saying human to human. And if we could start there first and foremost, just acknowledging that the person across from you is a human being and have that dialogue, then guess what? We could probably break down a lot of barriers, but we first have to value one another as being human beings. That's what's most important. And then after that, hopefully, a little love, a little hug, a little kumbaya, but initially there's got to be some humanity in regards to the issue. Man. But other than that, thank you very much, brother. Hopefully I'll get to see you next Wednesday, man.
No. You are, God willing. No. Next Wednesday, because like I said, I'm asking you all to schedule yourselves. So, Chuck, you are next Wednesday. I forgot who I asked to be the following Wednesday. We're going to talk about this in the green room because the bottom line is you all deserve your time with Kevin and myself. so we can talk about whatever issues that pop up that day or that week. We're going to talk about that, and because you've all articulated yourself so eloquently, and it's a beautiful thing. My wife, what are you talking about over there? Yeah. So Chuck, you are next Wednesday. God forbid, you know. What's she gonna do? She's gonna be on the show next week too. Gina, give us some positive affirmation, and we're gonna talk in the green room. Go ahead, Gina. Give me some love.
Okay. Again, Chuck, you're in my head. I don't know what I want to say. Like Chuck, don't let Chuck come before me again. Right? Just come to me first, all right? He's in my head. So basically, what I want to say is don't judge a book by its cover, or don't judge a person by the color of their skin. We're all human first. And basically just, stay positive. That's all we could do. I mean, and keep your eyes and ears open. I mean, we still have to be on alert, whether we're in the forest or out on the streets. So we still have to be alert on what's going on in our surroundings. So
absolutely. I got you, G Money, or I didn't get you, G Money. Did I get you? I got you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alicia.
Again, I just want to say thank you to Bill and Kevin and the rest of the panel for having me. I had a fantastic time, and I do think it's about the collective effort. And I am also optimistic. I think that if we continue this and, hopefully we're planting a seed and it grows, I think that we can bring about change.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Kev, close it out, baby.
All right. Short and sweet, huh? First, let me thank everybody. Thank the whole panel, but the audience, and Bill. Thank you for letting me be part of this for this long. This has been, great, and I'm enjoying this week after week. I'm learning. I feel like I'm becoming, a better person from it, and I'm hoping, we all are taking something from it. It goes to show that, right, talking means something. We got to be able to talk to each other. We got to have dialogue. We got to be able to say some uncomfortable things with each other and cross that barrier. So that's my challenge to the people out there. Engage people. Try to talk to somebody that you normally wouldn't. And if it doesn't work out, talk to the next person. Let that one go. But change starts somewhere.
Right.
And it's small, but it starts. So let's start it together.
Absolutely. Kevin, talk about the child stuff.
All right. Well, talk about it every week. I am, my passion in life has become this National Child Protection Task Force. We have a tremendous problem in this country with sex trafficking, with child images, with children being exploited, and it is not our priority as a country. Our runaway kids are where trafficked kids come from. No ends, ifs, or buts. They're not kidnapped. They're not taken. They are from being runaways. They're the kids who are the most vulnerable. And what are we doing about it as a society? And I don't think we're doing enough. So that's become part of my passion in life. The National Child Protection Task Force. You can Google my name and find it. You can donate time. You can donate money. You can, whatever you feel you can do. We're out there. We're looking for more people. We're always looking for help. There's a lot to be done in this world.
Thank you. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. I want to thank my panel, everybody, Gina in the building, Alicia, Greg, Paula, Chuck, the people that weren't able to stay long, Colin, Courtney, my cousin Adrian, she wasn't able to get in. I see all of you chiming in. Lonzo, thanks for the invite, B. Absolutely. Everybody, listen, you're more than welcome. Hold on. Don't leave. We're going to go in the green room for about 2 minutes. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster. I have my lovely wife, Malika Forster, in the background, giving me the cues and the plugs and the ribs. I got them all. Shout
Those
out to
aren't
the
mild
YouTube
hints,
family,
Bill. Those are
Cynthia,
straightforward.
Dr. Wellness. I know Kevin, she was giving me the shots. Let me tell you something. I'm walking
I'm
with a
on
limp.
Malika's side,
Right.
dude. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
when
oh
I
my
walk out of this
God.
room. I'm dead too.
Jesus Christ. Let me tell you something. Talk about digging on me. Steph, I see you. Thank you all, everybody. We appreciate you. Real Talk Chronicles. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it. If you're on Facebook, share it. We talk to you soon. We see you next week, baby. Everybody, we out of here. You know?